Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be playing Clue. Yes, I'm going to be playing it by myself, but this one is going to be a little bit of a twist. Because if you read the old books of Clue, and if you hadn't, there will be a link under the description down below where you could look for yourself. There is a book of Clue where you read the stories that contain certain mysteries, and at the end of the chapter you have to figure out who did this and that, and it also has a solution which is like answers to who did it with what weapon and which room does it take place. And you're probably wondering, well, what does it have anything to do with playing Clue in Tabletop Simulator? Well, that's because I'm going to be doing this with a little bit of a twist, because as you can see, I have about 12 cards right next to the board, and I have to choose one of them if I think if it's the right answer. So, you're probably wondering, where do we start? Well, the board is already set up, and I'm going to be playing as Mrs. White because the game itself pick of who I want as a character. But I really wanted to be either Professor Plum, Mrs. Peacock, or Miss Scarlet. But because this is something that I will always play as, I will take that as an exception. So right now, I'm going to be playing this in single player mode with a bit of a story to it. And I'm going to read to the story that I just managed to found in a website. By the way, the link will be under the description down below if you want to check it out for yourself. So my objective here is to figure out who did it with what weapon and which room does it take place. And if I choose, and if any of these cards said something that I wanted to, if any of these cards had the room, the weapon, and the characters or the suspects that I mentioned about, that means that they are not the suspect. So this is a marking chip or token where you can mark who is not a suspect and which weapon was not used at this point. And because I also have 5 of these cards, well, actually it's 6, my apologies. And apparently, what I do know for sure that these 2 suspects, 2 weapons, and 2 rooms, which I'll get to in just a second, is not the main thing here. The main person, weapon, or room that took place and all that kind of stuff is going to be in this case file here. In this case file is the reveal of who did it with what weapon and which room. It's going to be very hard to explain, but we're going to get right into the reading first of all. So the first chapter that I'm going to read is Who Killed Pitty-Pat, and it is from issue 1 of the Clue book series, and this was titled Who Killed Mr. Body. But before we get to who killed Mr. Body, we need to figure out who killed Mr. Body's pet. In the conservatory, Mrs. White let out a blood-curdling scream. Her hands clutched the lace collar of her maid's uniform. Her face twisted with terror. "Good heavens!" cried Mr. Body, running into the room. "What is it?" She pointed downward. At her feet lay a mass of green feathers. "Oh, no!" gasped Body. "Not... Yes! Pitty-Pat!" Tearfully, Mr. Body kneeled down to examine the body of his beloved parrot. "The window was closed, Mr. Body," Mrs. White stammered. "I guess poor Pitty-Pat flew into the window and now he's..." Mr. Body let out a sob and finished his maid's sentence. Dead. 1 hour later, all of the guests gathered outside the mansion at the Body family cemetery. By the way, before I continue, I won't be doing this all day every day because I have to rest my voice for other commentary videos such as playing games and so forth. So anyways, let's get right back to the reading. Now, unfortunately, I might have to show you what it says here. So here it is. All right. I hope you guys and girls don't mind. Okay, so here's what it says. Mr. Body stood before a tiny coffin, rigging a wet hanky with both hands. Dearest Pitty-Pat, Mr. Body began, I am burying you alongside my own grave so that someday I may be with you again. There, said plump Mrs. Peacock, gently patting her host. Excuse me, I'm going to have trouble reading this properly. Pitty-Pat just flew to the great bird cage in the sky. No, no, cried Mr. Body. Pitty-Pat's dead. Mrs. Peacock looked blue. Mr. Body, don't say dead. It's a bad word. It's rude. Mr. Body sniffled. Now, said Colonel Mustard, slapping Body's back. A gentleman must always be brave. Mr. Body tried to be brave, but a loud sob escaped him. And another. He ran from the cemetery weeping. Well, I guess the funeral's over, said Mr. Green coldly. Poor Bertie, added Professor Plum. Miss Scarlet batted her long dark lashes. She ran her dark red nails through the little bit of reddish hair on Plum's head. Oh, now, don't pretend you like Pitty-Pat. None of us did. Why, Mr. Green, you once tried to strangle that bird. It pecked my ear, Mr. Green protested. His eyes narrowed to the size of poison darts. And what are you suggesting anyway? If you're implying anything, I'll beat you to a pulp. Threatening a woman? Cried Colonel Mustard. He slapped Green in the face with his glove. I challenge you to a duel. A duel? In the cemetery? Mrs. Peacock trembled with outrage. Why, that's rude. Mustard turned yellow. You're right, he said. Sorry. It's true what you say, Miss Scarlet, mused Professor Plum. I wasn't fond of the little creature. It pooped on... Hold on, let me rephrase that. It pooped on my book. It stole my anchovies, added Colonel Mustard. It ate my red robe, said Miss Scarlet bitterly. I never let anyone touch my makeup. It tried to nest in my feather duster, said Mrs. White. And it called me a bad word, said Mrs. Peacock with a frown. So, none of us like the bird, began the colonel. He knelt down and examined the dead bird carefully. Then we all had a motive for, prompt Mr. Green. For murder, finished the colonel. Murderer? Mrs. Peacock looked faint. Yes, murder. Look at the wound. Someone could have hit Pitty-Pat on the head with a blunt instrument. Then the killer could have placed the parrot beneath the closed window to make it look like an accident. Poppycock, sneered Mr. Green. Let's bury the thing. I've made inquiries. I think that's how you pronounce it. I made inquiries, said the colonel, ignoring him. I know that at the same no, I know that at the time of the accident, three of us had blunt weapons. Professor Plum had the candlestick. You, Mr. Green, had the wrench, and Miss Scarlet had the red no, Miss Scarlet had the lead pipe. You have to excuse me if I'm messing up. Nonsense, sputtered Mr. Green as he casually tossed the wrench into the bushes. However, continued the colonel, only two of us were in the conservatory at all today, and one of those two was not Miss Scarlet. Thank you for clearing my name, said Miss Scarlet, blushing bright red. She leaned over and planted a big, loud kiss on the colonel's cheek. Her lips left their mark in red lipstick. Yes, well, there's one final clue, stammered the colonel. At the time of Pitty-Pat's unfortunate demise, I was in the billiard room and I was playing snooker with Mr. Green and Professor Plum. You were? Said Professor Plum, looking surprised. Oh, yes, quite right. So you were. It slipped my mind. Well, then, I think I know who killed the dirty bird. So that leads to the ultimate question. Who killed Pitty-Pat, Mr. Buddy's pet parrot? Well, in order to find out, we must play a solo version of Clue. So how this works is that you technically have to play as other characters. It doesn't matter which one, even though I want to play Colonel Mustard because he's the one that knows who the killer is. However, I'm going to be playing as Mrs. White because I'm going to imagine that she may have known who did it, even though she's in the conservatory. And the reason why she's in the conservatory is because she didn't witness the murder, but she witnessed the bird lying dead. And it caused her to scream. So, right now I have 6 cards with me. So right now we have the ballroom, Professor Plum, candlestick, billiard room, wrench, and Mr. Green. So I know for certain that it may not be clear. I know for certain that Mr. Green and Professor Plum are not the suspects. And I also know that the candlestick and the lead pipe are not, well, actually, let me rephrase that. I know that the lead pipe is one of these murder weapons because it's a blunt object. And I know that the wrench is not the murder weapon either. So the lead pipe could be the murder weapon. And I know that the ballroom and the billiard room are not the rooms where the murder take place. But I think, let's see. But I think what I do know for sure is that what happened was the parrot was lying dead in the conservatory. So this may proven that the murder happened in this room. So right now we need to figure out who did it. And the answer could have been Mrs. Peacock, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, or even Miss Scarlet. Even though he said something about one of these people is not Miss Scarlet for some reason. But let's go ahead and start the game. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to roll a dice, determine where I go. Oops. Okay, so I got a 7. I got a 7, which means Mrs. White goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She's close. She's getting very close to the ballroom. But unfortunately, she did not make it. However, and usually once and originally once you did this and that, once you finish placing the characters in which room, you end your turn and the next player goes. But because this is a single player mode that I'm playing, I get to continue. I get to continue because Mrs. White did not manage to make it to the room. I know the book that I read may be a spoiler, but I want to keep it as a surprise. So I got an 8, which means I think I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me move this dice here. There we go. So I'm getting very close. I'm getting very close. Continue. And I always knock the candlestick. What's going on here? So 6. So that's a total of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So she made it to the conservatory, and there's the lead pipe. There is the lead pipe. So now I would like to make an interrogation. I would like to make an interrogation, but I also wanted to make an accusation. But I gotta be very careful, because if I choose wrongly, then the game is over, and the murderer gets away with it. So now, it all comes down to this. I do believe that because of what I read in the story, it has to be Miss Scarlet in the conservatory with the lead pipe. Alright, so let's open up this file case and find out who did it with what weapon and which room. Is it Miss Scarlet in the conservatory with the lead pipe? There we go. Here's Miss Scarlet. And over here is the conservatory. And last but not least is the lead pipe. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is your answer to this mystery. It is Miss Scarlet in the conservatory with the lead pipe. Now, this leads to another question. What happens if I interrogate? Well, if you decide to interrogate instead of making accusations, you get to pick one of these cards here. You get to pick one of these cards here. Let's say, for example, if I choose the conservatory and the lead pipe, but instead of choosing Miss Scarlet, I choose Mrs. Peacock. So you have to flip these cards over. And you continue to flip it over because you have to get the name of the suspects, the weapons, and all that kind of stuff. And here's Mrs. Peacock, which means that she is not the murderer. And then you're going to pick up this token right here and place it so that you know for sure that no one did it. However, if you manage to say a room like the lounge, then the lounge will be revealed, and you would have like placed this token here, and you said the lounge is it, isn't it? Excuse me. And if you choose a murder weapon, like for example, either a revolver or the knife, then the knife would be revealed, and you place a token right here. But we definitely now know for sure that Miss Scarlet did it. But the question is, what is the solution to this story? Well, let's find out. And here's the solution to this case. It was Miss Scarlet in the conservatory with her lead pipe. However, only 3 suspects had appropriate weapons, which is Professor Plum, Mr. Green, and Miss Scarlet. Professor Plum and Mr. Green were playing snooker at the time of the murder. That leaves only Miss Scarlet. And while one of the 2 suspects in the conservatory was not Miss Scarlet, the other one was Lucky. I can't even say it. The other one was. Luckily for Miss Scarlet, Professor Plum forgot all about the mystery, and she was never caught. So that means that Miss Scarlet got away for killing Mr. Body's pet parrot, and I don't know what his reaction. I wish the solution will give us like some sort of like having Mr. Body eavesdropping this whole conversation, realizing of who did it, and he'll be very furious and all that kind of stuff. That would have been totally a great idea of a story, but that's just my opinion. But regardless of that, this case has been solved. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this idea of a video, because I sure came up with the idea because it's like, wouldn't it be fun if I create a solo version of Clue, but with a story to it? And you have to play the game in order to figure things out. Even though I know who did it, but I just want to show you guys and girls as an example of what solo mode really is. Even though there's no other players, but think about it. Solo mode is technically story mode if you use the book or the ebook itself. Regardless of that situation, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave you a link where you can find the ebook or something under the description down below. Just make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Turn on these notifications so you won't miss a single upload. And I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, stay safe and have a wonderful day.